So in the previous video, we went over all the 5 steps of what it takes to leave a toxic environment. And this video is going to talk specifically about step number 1, which is realization. And so in the overview video, we mentioned that realization is being able to sit down and realize and understand what it is that you're actually experiencing and not trying to put in backstories for why the other person or people would be treating you a certain way, right? And so these circumstances might be a little bit different, but really interestingly enough, I think there's actually a lot of similarities, which is why I'm even coming to you, though I don't know you at all, whoever you are, the viewer. There are some common symptoms that you will see, which lets you know that you're in a toxic environment and actually resonates with what you are experiencing. So when we sit down to recognize what it is that we're going through, how do we feel is one part of it, right? So what are the symptoms? So let's say some examples could be, maybe you feel like you're walking on eggshells, right? And so this is pertaining, just to backtrack a little bit, this could be if you are in environment, meaning maybe it's a collective group, or it could be, on the one-on-one level, a relationship with a friend, a relationship with a significant other, a spouse, a relative. So we're talking about in these different circumstances. So it's really interesting that what I'm going to share with you is going to encompass all of that, right? So maybe in your particular situation, you might feel like you're walking on eggshells, right? There's this standard that, you need to do everything perfectly. You want to comply with the wishes of these people, and for fear that you might get some sort of blowback or there's going to be some sort of consequence, right? So maybe you're working really hard to please them. Maybe they just might not be satisfied. And you remembered from the last time, and now you're just like, okay, let me make sure that I make everything right. Okay, right? So maybe things are emotionally unstable there, possibly, and the standards just might be a little bit too difficult. And you are now under stress trying to make sure that happens, that you can fulfill what it is they're asking. And as a sub point of that you take care to do everything right, because there are those consequences. So what could those consequences look like? I don't know. You don't do something right, or you somehow offend this person, you're getting the silent treatment. Or maybe they just blow up on you and say like, how could you, rah, rah, rah. And it could be something very small, right? But whatever it is, the range of things that it could be, you don't want to experience that. And so you kind of, it's almost like you've become small. You kind of go inward, and, you're taking all of this stuff. You're taking this different emotional abuse or verbal abuse, whatever it is. And, when you deal with it enough, you're now saying to yourself, let me just be a peacekeeper. I don't want to mess up nothing. I don't want to aggravate them. I just really rather not deal with the drama today. Okay. The other thing that maybe you could be experiencing is that no might not be a legitimate answer. If you're saying, if you're being asked something, you say no, but you have to be ready to add to it. Now, I want to be able to teach you all that no is a complete sentence. However, in these environments, it isn't. It needs to be followed with a because. And whatever follows that because needs to be something that the other person or people deem as a legitimate excuse. So if you're thinking about examples of legitimate excuses, it's kind of like school. You remember how you had unexcused and excused absences, right? So if you just didn't show up to school and you didn't provide a doctor's note, or your parent didn't communicate anything to your teacher to say, hey, my child will be out of school, dot dot dot, they would say that that was an unexcused absence. But the excused absence on the other side, right, is like what I said. You had the doctor's note, there was something to prove that you were sick, a doctor's appointment, there was something documented to prove that this student, the student, you weren't just like out because you were out. There was actually a reason for it. And so that's kind of like how it is for these toxic environments. You need to have the excuse absence. You can't just say, no, I'm not feeling it, or no, I'm tired. It's got to be like you're sick and you just physically can't. Or perhaps maybe some folks might be all right if you said that you had another commitment, or if you had work or whatever. So some people just don't care about that, period. But usually that could get you in the clear. So it's not even enough to say no and to say, yeah, maybe I have free time, but maybe I just want it for me today. So that's it, and that's an issue if people cannot respect your no. The other part of this, and this kind of goes back to a previous point in which we were talking about fear of the consequences, actually, it fits into this, but it's also a separate point. The idea that they have the full reign to just talk however they want to you, right? They can do any sort of behavior, treat you any old type of way, and they expect you to take it. But if you were to have a moment where, and I know that this has been my experience, where, by nature I am very kind, but sometimes if you push me a little bit, it's like, and I don't really understand why I'm being met with certain opposition, then it's just like, all right, gangsta E got to come out, and it's just like, listen, I did my best to be nice to y'all, and now you're pushing it. Now I gotta have to tell you about your life. You know what I mean? So imagine, you don't really have to imagine. If you're watching this video, you might be experiencing this, but think about those circumstances where somebody or people, like the environment is coming at you crazy, and then you're saying, oh, I'm about to return the same energy. Or even if you're not trying to return the same energy, if you want to say, hey, I don't think that that's right, or I don't agree with that, then it's like it's World War V. And you're just expected to take abuse and just you be the emotional punching bag. So that's another symptom that you might see. It's acceptable for them, but it's not acceptable for you. So there's a double standard there. And then the sub point of this is that, so if this is not, if there are other people involved, so if there are other people involved in it, and they found out what happened, there are some people who would, there are some people who might agree with the person or institution that came at you for something, and they might criticize you and say like, oh no, that wasn't right what you did. But all you did was push back and say, I don't agree with this. It could be something as simple as that. But the environment itself dictates that you can't really do that. You know what I mean? So if I want to use this example because it's very fresh on my mind right now. But if you're using something like an institution of faith, right? So, there's a lot of things like, among abuses, spiritual abuse, I'm not sure how often that's talked about. I think it's out there. I just haven't seen a whole bunch. I'm starting to see it more now, since I've experienced it to some degree. But if you think about that, say if somebody who might have some sort of title or some sort of authority over you, so this could be, in an institution of faith, maybe it's even your job, it could vary. And somebody with a position of authority, your boss or your leader or your team leader or whatever it is, said something, you said you didn't agree. Now other people, because the idea is that the construct is made to keep the status quo. So now others might say like, no, you shouldn't have done that, or no, they were right. But good and well, they're not right. So, and that kind of can put you into confusion with just a whole nother point, which I'm not sure if this video, if I'll talk about it in this video, but we're going to talk about it at some point. You don't have the support. You know what I mean? Everybody has rallied to that person's side instead of yours. So that's another symptom. And if you've been dealing with your situation long enough, it starts to impact your health. So your mental health, things like anxiety and depression, starts to set in. And, you're just maybe, and you might even be high functioning. I think in my experience, I've dealt with both of these. And, a lot of the time people couldn't tell unless I was willing to be open and honest at the time. So maybe you can go to work, you can go to these events and you can put on a smile, but you really, this really just affects you so much. And, you might feel happy a little bit when you're not in this environment, but then, say if it's in your home, well, then that's, you gotta come home to it, and that can be a mode of stress. And so that's the first part of it. But then it goes from the mental and then starts to hit the physical. So, and maybe you can relate to this as well, that it's not just the matter of things like anxiety and depression, but now you're experiencing actual physical health problems. It is manifested in you physically. And I'll give an example for myself because now I can be open enough to talk about it. I remember experiencing something one time, some years back, when I was living in an apartment. I actually got so depressed that I was losing a lot of weight. A lot of people asked me if I was okay because, well, at first the losing the weight was like hell, like it was okay, and people were just like, ooh, like, wow, Elise, like, what are you doing? You look great. And it was just like, yeah. And it's just like, how do you tell people that your weight loss secret is actually depression? You know what I mean? And then, so it got from that stage and then to another place where it's just like, now I was really like, the weight loss that I had was so obvious because I had never been, there was a certain weight that I got to that I just never had been that small. And then people were beginning to say like, hey, is everything okay? And you know what I mean? And then I covered that bad boy up like, nobody's business. But now that I don't have the guilt and shame, I can open up and say like, yeah, I was dealing with some trouble in my home and I got very stressed with the person I was living with. You know what I mean? So you can start to get those health problems where, and let me backtrack a little bit. What I was dealing with affected me so much that I lost my appetite. So just to add that in. So I was losing my appetite, which then meant that I wasn't eating as much, which then resulted in the weight loss. So you had that. And, my stomach would turn in the morning. And so, you know what I mean? Like, so it's just different things. It might be those exact things, weight loss, stomach turning, so just the whole digestive system just being out of whack. And it might be even like heart palpitations or like, just like somewhat of a irregular heartbeat. And quite frankly, I'm not really sure. I probably should have went to the doctor for some of this, but amen. God is good. I've been recovered without seeing an actual doctor. So but things like that. All right. And then the two last symptoms, again, there could be more, but I'm just trying to sum up certain things that are probably common enough that you would resonate with, is that your sense of self is lost. The more you try to appease this person or people among this environment, you now kind of just become part of the system, for lack of a better word. You know what I mean? It's not about you anymore. You may think and you have a will and thoughts, but it really isn't about you. You stuff that to be able to appease somebody or to not disrupt the flow of things. And then the biggest point of that is ultimately your autonomy is lost, right? You have now succumbed to things like groupthink. You are now thinking about how can you serve others instead of serving yourself. And let me tell you, serving others is a great thing. I love to serve people. But when it comes at the expense of yourself, that's where service can get unhealthy. And so you want to have a good balance of being able to serve, but just like not, I guess, what's the word? I guess not self-sacrificing, because the thing is that, and I've heard this before, the idea of you can only give out of what you have. So if you're not fueled up, what can you truly give, right? And stuff like that leads to burnout. So those are the things you want to sit down in your step one and think about. Are you experiencing these things? And what is bringing this about, right? You know, so in the example of the weight loss, it wasn't just, oh, I just lost a lot of weight. Something happened to me. I lost my appetite. And then that resulted in the weight loss. So if your environment is causing these symptoms that you see right here, you need to sit down and think about it. And the other half of this step one, when I said leaving out the backstory, it doesn't matter that other person, experienced trauma in their life. It does not condone them giving you any sort of abuse that they have given you. It does not condone the verbal abuse. It does not condone the spiritual abuse. It does not condone I hope, like, in some circumstances, the physical abuse. It does not, whatever abuse it is, there is no reason that they can do it. We like the backstory because it helps us understand and it helps us forgive, which, I'll talk about in, some other videos later, that, forgiveness is important. So we like that so that we can understand the person, but we cannot use it as an excuse to say, okay, like, I need to take this. Oh, well, because they did this, whatever. Because, like, I don't want anybody to get into savior complexes of feeling like, oh, well, I need to save them and change them, because I have done that. And you might as well have put me, like, I might as well have been Ronald McDonald. Put me with a clown wig, that bright red clown wig, put my face painted up in clown makeup, and honk, because that's dumb. It's dumb. I had to realize, like, bro, you stupid. You stupid for that. Change them for what? No, they've got to do it. And if you have been that support system to them to try and help them, and they're not taking it, now they made a choice to not take it. So I need y'all to know that, because I needed me to know that. And I want y'all to know that too. Like, you cannot change anybody. You can inspire it. You can maybe do things to influence it, but the other person or the people, or the system in place, gotta make a decision and say, all right, we're gonna take this into account, and I think things need to change. Things need to be different. So you have to just summing up, I'm wrapping up now, is you want to be able to understand this objectively. You want to understand, I do not feel good. You want to understand that this place is not good for me. It's not good for me emotionally. It's not good for me mentally. It's not good for me physically, And so I think that I need to make a decision now. All right, so I hope that all of that made sense to you. Please engage with me in the comments section if you have any questions, if you've got just any comment that you have. I would love to hear from you. But this is our step 1 video, and we're going to continue on because we've got 4 other steps that we've got to get through. So I hope that all of this was helpful. Like, share, subscribe, get the word out there about this video, because I think it's a very important topic that we need to know about. So I will catch you next time, and thank you so much for taking your time to watch this video.